All right, thank you. I have a couple more questions I want to ask. We've been joined by Senator Roland Burris from Illinois. It's great to see you. And you're recognized for a statement or questions that you might have. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Just a brief statement here, Mr. Chairman. I certainly appreciate your comments and looking forward to hear what the testimony of these experts are going to be in terms of our information technology and how that's going to impact the work in government, the work in serving the people of America. And I know the wealth of knowledge about information technology is available to us is impressive. We're fortunate to have a president who has pledged to rely on this knowledge and to embrace technology to help agencies become more efficient, transparent, and secure. But I'm a believer in the old proverb. I haven't grown up and watched computers be created. It's called garbage in and garbage out. So the technology is only good as the people who are dealing with it. And I'm just hoping and praying that we do have the expertise and the knowledge with these appointments by the president, that they will make sure that we don't get any garbage going into those computers. So I will ask a couple of questions. So, I have a couple of questions. And what do you think about the creation of a cyber czar? You have any thoughts or comments on that? Chief Technical Officer, Chief Information Officer, or what will the creation of these positions do to ensure the government use of information technology will make us more secure?
Sure. So on the cyber czar, I've actually been working closely with Melissa Hathaway, who's leading that effort, and those recommendations are forthcoming. She's just in the middle of finishing up her 60-day review, and will be presenting her findings to the president around the creation of whether it's a cyber coordinator or the right posture for the United States when it comes to cybersecurity. But you make a good point, Senator, around information technology and making sure that we focus on, especially with the CTO and the CIO role, that we focus on not just technology, but technology is nothing more than an enabler towards business needs and common problems. And we also have to recognize that technology is not going to solve everything. There's a huge digital divide problem, and we need to realize that as we move the United States government towards the digital future, when we talk about Government 2.0, we have to do it in the context of recognizing that there are people, unfortunately, who do not have access to communications networks, that they're unfortunately, with the digital divide and some of the investments that are being made, are not going to be able to engage in this digital world. And also recognizing that those communities with accessibility issues, we have to also ensure that as the government moves in this direction, it keeps everything in mind in terms of the various constituencies that we have to ensure we're protecting and we're providing information and services in multiple formats and multiple ways.
And what are the biggest challenges to advancing our technology needs at the federal and executive levels of government? What are your challenges?
So some of the biggest...
Don't tell me money.
Well, no, I believe that some of the biggest challenges, frankly, are making sure that the federal government is doing a good job defining what problem it's trying to solve. As we talked about earlier, you can't just buy technology for technology's sake. It has to be grounded deeply in a business problem. And that's why, as I mentioned earlier, it's vital that there's a high level of engagement both with the business side on the federal government end and the technology side. If the business side is not going to be leading with the technology side, you end up with failures in technology projects.
We were at a hearing earlier this morning. I think, Mr. Chairman, that was the cybersecurity. And I'm just wondering whether or not we have these cybersecurity issues here with all these technology experts. I raised a question in that hearing this morning about the possibility of the old saying, being an accountant and an old bank examiner. One thing we always look for was double bookkeeping to see if there was some double records being kept somewhere. I just wonder, in terms of your computer or technology experience, in terms of cybersecurity, whether or not that's something that's on the drawing board in the making, where we can get security by running two systems simultaneously, and one of them is a false system which will give misleading information if they were to break into it and crack it. And the other one, of course, would be a little bit more secure, and they wouldn't know which one to be cracking into. Have you heard anything in that area going down in that field?
Sure. So in security, there's this concept of honeypots. Essentially, what they're designed to do is create an environment where hackers come in and are caught because they're attacking the wrong systems, and that allows the government to become smarter about types of attacks, what's going on, and how to confront some of those realities. But at a macro level, there's a trend, obviously, as we move to the digital world, whether that's our transportation infrastructure, whether that's our health infrastructure, whether we're looking at automation in general. As more and more processes move to the digital world, we need to ensure that we're moving forward in a responsible way to safeguard those systems, and at the same time, as you suggested, ensure that we're ever vigilant when it comes to information security.
Because you're in Homeland Security, where some information is going to be pretty vital. I mean, and what you're doing, and I would imagine that that would be certainly a source for the hackers to get into your system, not only defense or not only the FBI or justice, where they're trying to get some of our secrets, but trying to know what type of plans we have. Would certainly be interested in. I was just hoping that as you all start doing your planning and budgeting, that you all start looking. Do you have any honeypots in your operation?
So I can't speak to the security posture, but what I can say is that that's one of the reasons the president moved forward in the very beginning of this administration with that 60-day review, because we recognize how important security is, how vital it is, especially as we move forward into the digital world with all these business processes that we were talking about.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I might have another round. If you have another round, I may.
I'm just going to ask maybe one quick question. And let's say later tonight, folks are coming home from work or whatever, and they turn on their television and they're surfing the channels, and they come across this hearing on C-SPAN. And you're testifying, and people say, I wonder what he really does. Maybe someone who doesn't have much of an in-depth understanding of these issues, and most of us who serve here are, to some extent, lay people, with a few exceptions. But for folks that might be tuning in late and they say, what does this fellow do anyway? A lot of times people ask, especially young people, when I go to schools and have town hall meetings, and I do them in colleges and universities all the way down to like elementary school, and we usually start with the 4th grade, because that's when kids in our state learn about the Constitution and the 3 branches of government and so forth. But one of the questions that's often asked of me, especially by young people, is, what do you do anyway? And I always explain that, well, my job is to help make the rules for our country. And I work with people like Senator Burris, and the President, and the Vice President, and other colleagues. And our job is to help make the rules for our country, just like we have rules in their school, at their homes, and so forth. But when someone was able to call in and ask one of these questions over the internet or something and say, well, what do you do anyway? How would you explain it so that most American people could understand?
Sure. So one way I would put it is that I do 3 basic things. One is to make sure that your government is using technology so that you're receiving better services, in the same way that you can go on Amazon and buy a book, or you can go on Facebook and socialize. We want to make sure that we introduce efficiencies within the government so that you're able to leverage technology. Second is standing for you, the taxpayer, ensuring that your government is spending money wisely when it comes to investing in technology. And third is looking at how can the government work differently. even though we've been organized in the physical world in certain ways, how can we use technology to do things differently in the federal government? In the same way, from an average citizen's perspective, as your life has changed from a personal perspective, from using the cell phone to email to social networks now, how do we ensure that your government is doing the same thing and is moving forward to serve you better?
All right, that was a very good answer.
Did you ask about tweeting? Was it tweeting? What's that? Twitter. Is that what you're also doing at Twitter?
He was twittering when I was asking. He was twittering when I was asking questions. It's pretty good. No, not really. But I noticed our next panel of witnesses were, so we'll find out more about that later. Anything else you want to add, Senator Bush? Is that it? Okay. Anything else you'd like to say before you? And I would ask you, if you don't mind, if your schedule allows you to stick around for a while during at least a part of the second panel's presentation. I think that would be great. Sometimes people feel like administration people feel like they need to run right out of here, and sometimes I think they would benefit by sticking around for a little bit. So if your schedule allows you to do that, please do for a while. Thank you.
Thank you, Senator.
Right. And thanks so much. I'm sure some of my colleagues will have questions for the record, and I would just ask that you respond to those in a prompt way. Thanks very much.
Thank you, Senator.
And good luck. I would ask our second panel of witnesses to come on up and join us, and as they approach the witness table, I'm going to go ahead and make some introductory comments. Our first introduction will be for Dave Powner, Director of Information Technology Management at the Government Accountability Office, a person we've never seen here in this committee hearing before. Actually, we see him a lot. And I said to Eric Hopkins, who was our principal staff person on the subcommittee, that if we had to pay you and Karen Evans in the last Congress for every time you appeared before us, that'd run up the federal deficit even higher. But in private sector, Mr. Powner has held a number of executive-level positions in the telecommunications industry. He has been instrumental in helping this subcommittee to provide oversight of risky IT investments. And I know that Mr. Powner has appeared before us on any number of occasions, but I want to thank him again for taking time to come today and to be with us. Our next witness is Karen Evans. Ms. Evans is the former administrator of the Office of Electronic Government and Information Technology at the Office of Management and Budget. Ms. Evans previously held Mr. Kundra's position and oversaw the implementation of IT throughout the federal government, including capital planning and investment control. She's a 20-year veteran of government service. I think I once commented that she started at the age of 12, but a 20-year veteran of government service who testified before the subcommittee on a number of occasions, and we're delighted to have you before us. Thank you for joining us. And one of my first questions, I'll just send this ahead, is there life after government? I said, well, my first, you don't have to answer it now, but we'll make sure that you have a chance here in just a minute. And our final witness is Mr. Phil Bond, the president. Not every day we have a president here before us, but the president of Tech America, which is one of the broadest U.S. technology associations representing some of America's most prolific IT companies such as Google and Microsoft. Mr. Bond has served in both the private and the public sector, serving as Undersecretary of Technology in the U.S. Department of Commerce from 2001, I think, was it 2003? 2004. He's also served within the Department of Defense from 1992 to 1999. What did you do in the Department of Defense? All right. I'd like to recognize, first of all, Mr. Powner for his statement, and I would ask him and from Ms. Hughes, Mr. Bond, to try to keep your statements to close to 5 minutes, and if you get much beyond that, I'll rein you in, but we'll let it go by a little bit. Thank you. Your whole statement will be made a part of the record, and I understand you may have oral statements that abbreviate those written statements, but the full statement will be made a part of the record. Mr. Powner, you're our lead-off hitter. Welcome. Nice to see you back.
Continue. Chairman Carper, Senator Burris, we appreciate the opportunity to testify this afternoon. As requested, Mr. Chairman, my testimony will focus on OMB's oversight and transparency of federal IT projects. Mr. Chairman, I'd like to thank you and your staff for your in-depth oversight you performed over the past several years of federal IT projects. Much progress was made with your oversight and Ms. Evans' leadership and cooperation that included improvements in the accuracy and reliability of project business cases, better project planning through the management watch list process, identifying high-risk projects with performance shortfalls, and using project management tools to better manage cost and schedule performance, and to oversee contractors. Despite these improvements, many serious problems still exist. Many projects are nowhere near their cost and schedule and performance goals. Every hearing you've held, Mr. Chairman, highlighted hundreds of projects totaling billions of dollars that were at risk. And if we had updated information for today's hearing, I'm fairly certain that things wouldn't change. Transparency of these problems also remains an issue given the limited number of high-risk projects that have historically reported cost and schedule variance problems. We have too many unqualified project managers and a lack of engineers and architects on the government side. Many IT projects lack basic project management discipline. Far often the government doesn't adequately define what it wants, manage risk, nor does it oversee and scrutinize underperforming contractors. Projects proceed forward with unclear baselines and with inaccurate cost and schedule estimates. Project business cases and justifications are too much of a paper exercise and involve contractors too much, and executives, including CIOs, are not always engaged in oversight. Given these issues, the new administration needs to bolster the IT workforce, namely qualified project managers, engineers, and architects. The administration needs to have CIOs act like CIOs, where they have the appropriate authority and accountability. The administration needs to streamline the business case process where it is less of a writing exercise. The administration needs to improve government-wide project management discipline by focusing on defining requirements well, aggressively managing risks, not allowing contractors to be in charge, and using proven tools to better manage cost, schedule, and performance. The administration also needs to better monitor cost and schedule performance at both the department and agency executive level and from the executive office of the president for all major IT projects. This could be done by leveraging the existing management watch list and high-risk processes. I'd like to stress that OMB needs to decide on its oversight approach and promptly implement it. As we've just heard, Mr. Kundra clearly knows the issues, but it's unclear what approaches will be used to address them. Lastly, the administration needs to highlight and swiftly resolve major cost and schedule performance issues or deviations by making key executives accountable along with project managers. In summary, Mr. Chairman, knowing what to fix is the first step, and we wouldn't have this information without your leadership and oversight. Thank you. We look forward to working with you and the new administration as they roll out their oversight processes. I'd like to highlight the need to build off of the progress over the past several years to ensure that American taxpayers are getting the right return on the $70 billion investment the government is currently spending. I would be pleased to respond to questions.
Good. We'll have some in just a few minutes. Thank you for being here. Thanks for your testimony again and again. You're the gift that keeps on giving, so we're grateful for that. Ms. Evans, please proceed.
Good afternoon, Mr. Chairman and members of the subcommittee. I'm pleased to be invited back to share my views on the Government 2.0, advancing America into the 21st century and the digital future. My written testimony includes challenges facing the federal government and recommendations to meet the expectations of society, especially today's generation, which has grown up in a network collaborative world. Simply put, Mr. Chairman, the text message generation is not going to accept a carbon paper government. I would like to focus my remarks specifically on information challenges and cost-effective information technology systems. But first, I would like to commend the Office of Management and Budget for again partnering with the National Academy for Public Administration. In October 2008, OMB and the CIO Council partnered with NAPA to hold a national dialogue on health, IT, and privacy. Starting yesterday, NAPA is hosting a dialogue with the American people to address how the recovery.gov website can be useful to the citizens. Innovations will happen organically as today's young people who are growing up in a collaborative world move into the federal workforce. But there will be cases where Congress will have an opportunity to break down some of the barriers for the federal government through authorization or appropriation or oversight. For example, the Paperwork Reduction Act, which was intended to reduce the burden of collecting information from the public, effectively prevents agencies from gathering feedback or user-generated content online. Adding a website survey requires an approval process, which includes a public comment period. So it's a catch-22. We have to ask the public to comment on whether the government can ask for comments. Currently, there are two provisions in appropriations law which prohibits agencies from competitively procuring IT systems from shared service centers, and the use of persistent cookies on federal websites disables a wide range of Web 2.0 applications. If Congress wants to move the government into a Web 2.0 world, these laws, regulations, and procurement rules will need to be rewritten. Congress, GAO, OMB, and federal agencies have focused a considerable amount of time and effort on ensuring investments in IT are selected wisely, managed effectively, and delivered successfully, and yet agencies continue to struggle. The disciplines of capital planning and investment management are insufficient to fully address today's IT investment challenges. OMB and agency heads alike would be well served if agencies could provide a composite view of their IT program, a roadmap of prioritizing their system investments which maps to the agency's strategic plan. To do this, agencies should bolster the role of department-level CIOs beyond a mere pass-through of business cases to OMB. They should equip and empower the CIO to provide meaningful investment analysis, strategy, and oversight, and not to continue to allow component agencies to disregard departmental policy and direction by investing in IT independently of the department or the government-wide strategy. Earned value management, or EVM, is often touted as the magic bullet solution to project management costs and overruns. This is not necessarily my experience. EVM is an industrial strength solution for managing large-scale systems development efforts. It is not well suited for, or intended for small and medium-sized projects. However, I do believe all IT investments should be held accountable for managing their cost, schedule, and performance on a routine basis, perhaps using an earned value management or earned value management-like tracking system. Too much emphasis is being put on to adhere to the original, programmatic, performance measurement, or current baseline reporting. Rather, we should actively engage in risk awareness and management, and we should apply strategies to invest in less large-scale, long-term, and perhaps grandiose system development efforts. When addressing the 21st century government, we should build on the foundation in place. In 2004, GAO identified 13 major areas of responsibilities for CIOs, whether they were statutory requirements or critical for effective information and IT management. Whereas people commonly associate the CIOs with computers and information technology, a review of these 13 responsibilities make it clear a CIO manages information. And to be successful, the CIO must address all of them, from privacy and security to records management. They should not and cannot pick and choose which ones they will address, but they need to ensure they address them all. Mr. Chairman and members of the subcommittee, this concludes my statement, and thank you again for the opportunity to appear before the committee. I'd be pleased to answer questions at the appropriate time.
Thank you, ma'am. Thanks very much for your testimony and for being with us again today. Mr. Bond.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman and Senator Burris. Pleasure for me to be with you. I want to thank you for the opportunity to talk about how government can use new Web 2.0 technologies and management practices. With over 1,500 member companies, Tech America is the largest advocacy organization for the technology community, with 17 regional offices and affiliates in most states, including Senator Burris, our regional office in Chicago. I wanted you to know. We're happy to testify here today because we fundamentally believe that the government has a very important role to play in spurring further innovation in and adoption of Web 2.0 technologies. And as we look around the world, we sometimes see other governments leading the way in spurring this innovation in a digital world that was largely created here in the U.S. Let me give you three quick examples. New Zealand has launched an e-initiatives wiki, meaning that people can comment there, which replaced an older and static model for tracking progress of their e-government initiatives. As of April 24th, almost 500,000 people are following the daily activities of the UK Prime Minister on Twitter. And Sweden has, there's Twitter for you, Senator Burris. Sweden has opened a virtual embassy in Second Life. Here in the U.S., we see many states and localities moving along this front. Certainly, Vivek Kundra led some of those in the District of Columbia. Nearby in the Commonwealth of Virginia, they have RSS feeds for 34 different kinds of information, including local news, employment opportunities, and legislative information. Many of the state of Virginia state government agencies post videos directly onto YouTube. Similarly, the state of California Franchise Tax Board has used YouTube as a venue to put videos out explaining tax regulations. Recently, with the flooding of the Red River, citizens across North and South Dakota were able to share information directly with one another, uploading videos and other real-time information using web and video blogs and social networking. In Los Angeles, first responders there have used Twitter and Google Earth to plan and allocate resources in responding to wildfires there last year. There are federal examples to be sure. FEMA and NASA, among others, use Second Life. CDC has launched a swine flu information piece on Twitter. GSA has an important new agreement with Facebook, making that available to agencies. But the embracing of these is often slower and hindered, as Ms. Evans just referred to, by older regulations. Our observation among our companies is this, that the Web 2.0 phenomenon is growing. It will create jobs and economic growth, and is one of the reasons our economy has traditionally been so dynamic. But to fully realize the potential, we believe America needs to recognize the following. First, our nation's lead in technology and innovation is slipping. The world is getting more competitive. Secondly, we do need more people with access to broadband services, whether on the wire or wirelessly. There are also, I think, we believe, insufficient identity management policies so that government can know the person is who they say they are. And then we would also point out, as Senator Burris and the chairman both have pointed out today, that legitimate, very legitimate information security concerns, cybersecurity concerns, can be sometimes seen as an impediment or a reason not to adopt some 2.0 technology. And by the way, we also believe that a smart government cybersecurity strategy can address those concerns and hasten the deployment of 2.0 technologies. There are some challenges specific to the government I would like to mention. The federal IT budget and uncertainty of that, or government by CR, is certainly one problem. Some federal procurement laws and regulations and acquisition practices, we believe, frankly, do not allow agencies to keep up with the latest technology. They are often a generation behind. Outdated systems and disparate infrastructures render them unable to use some of the latest technologies that are available through social networking capabilities. And last and certainly not least, here I want to mention something that Mr. Powner mentioned, which is the shorthanded procurement corps. The professional procurement corps of the federal government is dramatically shorthanded, and many of them will be retiring. So we would like to put forward the following recommendations, some of which have already been made by the federal web managers last year. One, the administration should require software and social networking strategies from the different agencies. Secondly, we believe that OMB and OPM should update federal guidance to individual users and the agencies on the use of social networks and the software involved there. We believe Congress and the administration should consider allowing a percentage of the savings from successful technology projects to be available for enterprise-wide challenge that the CIO Council and others have identified, because that kind of funding is sometimes very hard to get. And finally, we believe that the GSA example with Facebook, a single set of terms and agreements that can apply to other agencies, is the kind of model that the administration should look at for all social media and social networking that's out there. So with that, Mr. Chairman, let me again join the others in commending you and the committee for this important hearing and subject, and thank you for the opportunity and look forward to any questions.